Hey guys, what is up? It is me, Pagey here once again with another video on The Flash Season 4. So as we should all know, the big cliffhanger, if that's what you want to call it, that we were left with at the end of last season, obviously that being Season 3, was of course Barry essentially accepting his fate and willingly going within the Speedforce in order to fill the Speedforce prison that had been set up by a future version of Barry in order to contain Savitar, the God of Speed. But one other thing that occurred that had everyone guessing and wondering what was going to come from it was of course the reason that Barry had to go into the Speedforce in the first place, and that was the Speedforce Storm caused by the unrest within the Speedforce that resulted in bolts of lightning might I say, like raining down upon Central City and causing damage, and as you would also guess, hitting people. But of course, before we jump into the rest of the video, there will be a couple of options as to what's going on here, so be sure to let me know in the comment section down below your various opinions on those options, whether you agree with them, whether you disagree with them, or if you want to build more upon them. And of course, if you're going to enjoy the video, be sure to drop a like on it to show your support and subscribe to the channel if you're new. So we are now 16 episodes into this 23 episode season. Of course, we have a month until like episode 17, but yeah, we are a fair way through this season. Moving into the final third, and nothing has really come of that Speedforce Storm. There's been no real mention of it, no examples of damage it may have caused, which is extremely strange as that storm looked like it definitely did a lot of damage. So this does raise a pretty big question. What happened to the Speedforce Storm? Why does it seem that the show has just, well, like forgotten about it? There are many ways in which the Speedforce Storm could be used on the show and introduce or even just further certain plots. But I think the main reason behind the Speedforce Storm not really playing a part of this season really comes down to, and this shouldn't come as like too much of a surprise to most of you, and that reason is the villain for this season, that being Clifford DeVoe, aka the Thinker. If they were to have had the Speedforce Storm from the end of Season 3 affect this season with how DeVoe's story is playing out and everything he is doing in order to achieve what he is setting out to do, then it would be, well, quite messy. I mean, as I said, we are up to episode 16 and we still have to deal with 2 bust metahumans, then we have to move on to actually taking on DeVoe himself or herself, depending on what body he has come in at the end of the conflict or towards the end of the conflict. You know what I'm getting at. So if we were dealing with the results and effects of that storm, then there would just be way too much stuff going on this season. However, just because we didn't get the repercussions of the storm straight away in Season 4, that doesn't mean that we couldn't get them later on. Whether that be right at the end of this season, setting it up for Season 5, or, you know, we just get them in Season 5. Like we have seen in the past, not only in The Flash, but other shows such as Arrow, things that have occurred in the past can come back to be a main focus in the future, or in this case, like the present, I guess. Whether they are minor things or major things that can lead to people like Prometheus showing up and trying to break you down completely. But if we were to see the Speedforce Storm's effects show up again next season, what storylines could go down using it? Now, as some or most of you may know, the Speedforce Storm is best known from the most recent iteration of the, the Flash comics as part of DC Rebirth. So the 3 options that we will be going over now are all taken from that, with some other stuff added on for one of the options. So the first of these is basically the story from Volume 1 of the Flash Rebirth. Spoilers, I guess, ahead, but, you know, it's been out for like 2 years almost, so if you haven't read it by now, then you're never going to read it. And that is that simply that the Speedforce Storm strikes various citizens of Central City and gives them access to the Speedforce. Now, it is important to remember that all people within Central City aren't good though. It's not like Central City is free of crime and stuff, otherwise the Flash wouldn't be that busy, you know? So some nice ordinary people were given speed, but then some, you know, criminals or people who, if they had powers, would use them for negative things, they were also given speed. So it is up for the Flash, with help from Star Labs, to train the good speedsters to control their newly found abilities, and then also to deal with the bad ones who are using their speed for, you know, mainly robbing and stuff like that. Along with this, the now well-known Godspeed would feature as the season's big bad. Personally, I will be changing the identity of him for the show just so it is a bit more like mysterious, even though if they did that eventually you would be able to pick who Godspeed was fairly easily before he would be revealed, just due to the traits of the character, if they would like to keep them for the show. Like, you might not be able to pick it straight away, because I think in the comics it was pretty easy to pick out who Godspeed was. You know, you didn't have to wait too long to go, okay, he's Godspeed, and then eventually they revealed it. But in the show, they could, you know, stretch it out a bit more and put more mystery to it. So I think changing the name of the character is one big point, but also just, you know, chucking in a couple of other options and just mixing it up a bit so you're not picking who Godspeed is straight away. If Godspeed were to be the main villain for the season, so the big bad, so Barry deals with him in the last episode, they would have to save him appearing in the show for a decent amount of the season. Personally, I would leave him showing up for the first time until episode 9. So that's the first time we see him. That's the mid-season finale. In season 1, from memory at least, episode 9, the mid-season finale, that was the first time we see Reverse Flash and him and Barry have that conflict. That's how I would play it out at least. Now, Godspeed in the comics isn't necessarily like a full-on villain. He's more like just like an anti-villain, if you want to call it that, or an anti-hero, might I say. So they might have to twist the character around a bit, or it could be like a life lesson throughout the season. We'll have to wait and see how they play it out. There's a couple of roads they could go down with this specific storyline, and it would be interesting to see how they go with it. The next option basically plays out like the first one, but that first option is just the first half of the season for this option, and the second half involves another big bad. Someone like Cobalt Blue maybe, which would be pretty cool, but it could be someone else if they wanted to. But yeah, not really too much to go into in regards to this option, but if that first option was the first half of this season, then wow, that would be one action-packed opening half to next season. And in the back half, they could just say it's all results from all these speedsters and stuff. Cobalt Blue in the comics can take speed, so maybe take speed from some other speedsters that were created from the Speedforce Storm. I don't know, or it could be something else. It could even be our third option, could be the villain for the back half if they wanted to. But the back half is basically just free for whatever they'd want to do. But essentially in this option, the first option is the first half of this option. I'm saying option and half too much throughout this video. Anyway. And the last option involves an organization from Flash Rebirth, and that is Black Hole. Black Hole are essentially terrorists, that's the best way to put it, who have heavily researched the Speed Force in order to utilize it to manufacture Speed Force powered weapons, when actually used against a speedster, interrupt or interfere with their connection to the Speed Force. So you would have the Speedforce Storm in this option, it affecting people throughout Central City, giving them speed, but Black Hole would be taking those individuals, or some of them at least, so maybe they could go with like, you know, a decent amount of these new speedsters, or the good speedsters are with Barry in like Star Labs, or, you know, the Flash and Star Labs, you know, learning their abilities, but then some have been picked off by Black Hole, and they're, you know, experimenting on them and taking their Speed Force energy to build these devices and weapons. You know, that's probably what they would do. I don't think they'd take every single speedster that was created. They'd be picking off like 1 or 2 at a time, so it isn't too suspect. They could also involve a main villain as like the head of Black Hole if they wanted to, or someone funding them that wants their own access to the Speed Force or something like that. So even though you might be thinking, oh, a non-meta group as the villain, that sounds really interesting, not. If they were to be building up to some power-hungry person finally getting their wish granted, which, you know, getting speed, we could have a pretty overpowered villain at the end, who could be threatening the health and well-being of the Speed Force as well, which I'm sure we all know Barry would want to keep nice and healthy. Now, obviously, if this person is the head of Black Hole and they're taking, you know, they're building up to them getting all the Speed Force energy, doesn't necessarily mean they get speed. They could just be using the energy to give themselves some other form of power. Maybe they're scientifically able to, you know, generate it. We'll have to wait and see if they were ever going to go down this option, but there's a couple of options that they could use in regards to them using Speed Force energy to give someone else powers. But yeah, there's a couple of options. But thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, it'd be awesome if you could drop a like on the video to show your support. Let me know in the comment section down below what you think of this video. What are your thoughts on the options? Would you like the Speedforce Storm to be brought back up? Because I'm guessing most people watching this video were like, oh, that looks pretty cool. I wonder where that's going to lead to. And if you had been reading the Flash Rebirth, you're like, okay, they're doing this. This is really cool. But now they've just almost like forgotten about it. So let me know your various opinions in the comment section down below. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. I'll catch you later, guys. Goodbye.